Good morning, this is Jack from Charting the Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for a special Labor Day edition on Monday, the 1st of September. My disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing and learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. I'm not here to issue trading signals. Right. From now on, when we have a holiday on a Monday, what I'm going to do is I'll do the bigger weekend one on the Monday, and I will do the second one in the middle of the week on Thursday morning, just to reflect that obviously that's halfway through the rest of the trading week. All right, great. So let's have a look at where we are. Okay, ES. We have a possible topping set up here. It's not awesome, but it's not bad either. This could play out this week. If we were to see this play out, then this could get us down into about the 63.80 area. I've got more to say about crypto on this setup later, but I'll come to that obviously. NQ, we've got a possible head and shoulders forming here too. This one would have, it would have a target basically down at a retest this low here, just above 23,000, as that's where the trend came from. That's where the minimum target would be, and obviously it'd be an extended target a bit lower, as possibly part of a larger double top, but not a lot at the moment to suggest we're going to see anything like that here. RTY has gone higher here. We do not have, well, we arguably have, but it's a lower quality one. So I haven't marked it in. It's not much of a double top, and it's not much of a possible head and shoulders forming here either. Looking at YM, 60-minute sell signal has reached the possible near miss target. Oh, one thing to mention on NQ, a 60-minute buy signal has fixed. And also the ideal right shoulder high would be up here at about the 63,650 area. Okay, looking at YM, 60-minute sell signal reached the possible near miss target. We don't have a decent head and shoulders option here either, and we don't actually really have a double top here. Arguably, this could be, if we do see a move down, I'd be thinking my first protocol would be that we were possibly testing the new monthly pivot at 44,967, and that might be part of a bull flag forming. On DAX, we have a possible head and shoulders, which is actually already broken down, with a target at a retest of this low here at 23,430 area. Not the highest quality though, but valid for sure. And ESTX, could there be a head and shoulders here? Not really. We had nothing really worth the mention in terms of topping patterns here. If we were to do one, it would actually be from this neckline here. We could be starting to form a right shoulder here, but I don't see any pattern which is actually ready to break down. We've got a weak 60-minute buy signal which is fixed. All right, let's have a look at those on the big picture, and first let's have a look at the 60-minute charts. Okay, looking at looking at the 60-minute chart on SPX, we obviously went up and made a higher high. We have a potential double top forming here, and we got a potential smaller head and shoulders forming here, which you can see on this 5-minute chart. Not great quality though. It would be an upscaled neckline up here. Ideally, the right shoulder high would be in the 64.78 area. Mainly, I'm looking at the overall double top setup. On the Qs, we haven't retested the high yet. We still do have a potential head and shoulder setup here, which if it broke down would probably have a target really down here at about the 535 area. Looking at the Dia chart. I'm sorry, these are all snoozed while I've been working on the rest of the charts. Okay, so Dia. We've gone and made a new high. We've gone through this trend line here. At the moment, that is holding as support. And I'm wondering whether we may extend higher to one of these two trend lines. And IWM, we've got, sorry, I've not marked. I've marked in the, didn't mark in the actual signal here, which is an RSI 14 sell signal is fixed on the hourly, which is a decent looking sell signal, but it's pretty much alone. And we've got a little buy signal on the RSI 5. So that I've got the indications are suggesting that we're going to see a rally first tomorrow morning, and after that we might actually see some downside. Not a tremendously large amount of patterns, not very high probability, but definitely a significant possibility there. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. And looking at the daily charts, Right. Looking at ES, obviously we're well above the daily middle band, and we're well above that on SPX as well. We've got no divergence forming on either. Looking at the Qs, no divergence there either. We have been kicking around the daily middle band, and we've been closing each day at least a little above it, and we did exactly the same on Friday. Now we're hovering a bit too close to the middle band. Well, sometimes you test something. Well, actually, someone said it to me a few years ago in a way which is very memorable and applies here, which is that if you keep knocking on a door, sooner or later it opens. It's been knocking on this door for a week. Not really been getting away from it. If they can't break up from it, then sooner or later it's likely to break down. All right, looking at Dia, RSI 14 sell signal fixed. Nothing on the daily chart here really. Obviously way above the daily middle band. Q is the only one really having much of a problem with the daily middle band. Let's have a look at the daily chart on IWM. Now, IWM, we've got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed. We've also now got a possible RSI 5 sell signal brewing, because this has done what Dia hasn't, which is gone back and retested the high. Now, obviously, on the bigger picture, we've still got a minimum IHS target at a retest of 24304. I'd only be looking for some retracement here if we see some, but there is definitely a setup here where we could see some retracement. We shall see. We are obviously a long way over the daily middle band here. All right, looking at DAX. Apologies for this. I should have gone through all these before I started, but I wasn't expecting this. This is a new feature snoozing on this browser. All right. Possible weak RSI 5 sell signal brewing on the monthly, on the daily, but that is for a later time really. We've got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed here. Not really anything to write home about. Do we have a possible level top here? Yes, we do. In the event that we do see quite a lot of downside, but there's not an awful lot suggesting that we're going to. On Nikkei, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, and the RSI 5 sell signal has now reached the possible near miss target. We are testing. No, we have broken slightly. Sorry, my trend line has moved slightly, so I'm going to move it back. This is a very slight break of the trend line support. So this could be topping out on this move, in which case we've got a huge double top here, which I'm really not expecting to play out. But we could well be topping out for a significant retracement here. We shall see. All right, let's have a look at DX. Okay, DX. There's a potential double bottom here, and it's still here. But obviously it never broke up, and we're almost back at the lows. We still do have an entirely valid head and shoulder target down here in the 96.8 area. 97.8 area, and 96.8 area, and I am still thinking that might get made. Looking at the other currencies, USD, possible level top breakdown and has almost rejected back up to the high. GBP USD, this kind of looks like a bull flag that's broken up again with a target at a retest of the high. USD JPY, possible double bottom forming here. That broke up and hasn't rejected all the way back to the lows yet, but I'm thinking it might. USD CAD, wondering if we're going to see a bounce here to form the right shoulder on a possible head and shoulder pattern, which would be quite a nice one. That, on the other hand, would only be a good fit with the dollar going up here, which I'm not really seeing much of a chance of elsewhere. Australian dollar, weak RSI, weak 60-minute sell signal fixed, but not a lot else to suggest downside here at the moment. And NZUSD, got a 60-minute sell signal fixed as well. We will see how that goes, but overall, DX, I think, has a lean towards the downside, and we've still got, obviously, this open head and shoulder target there, and we've also got another target, which is, hang on, in the event that we get down below this level here, this is the right shoulder low on an inverted head and shoulders. I've got that, basically, just below this head and shoulder target, which is one reason I've been watching this head and shoulder target with an awful lot of interest. I've got that in about, the head and shoulder target's about 96.8. I've got that at about the right shoulder low at about 7.9 or 7.8. So slightly below that, and this IHS fails, and that triggers the target back at a retest of this low, and that's something I'm thinking we might very well see. All right, looking at the US dollar chart on the bigger picture. This looks like a flag. It looks like a flag that's broken down. Retesting this high from here wouldn't give us a double top because it would be too large relative to the move up from this low. I'm thinking we may be on the way back down here to a full retest of 96.38. That would be on here. The IHS would fail on a move below the right shoulder low at 97.11. But I'm very much thinking if that fails, then that is the obvious next target. Looking at the bigger picture chart. Right, sorry, I'm getting slightly irritated with the yeah. Anyway, if we do that, then that could well set up the second low of a double bottom. On the bigger picture, we had a perfect touch of this rising support trend line, and in the event that we came back and retested this low, this would break this this perfect touch of the trend line. But all that would mean is that the rising megaphone was likely starting to break down. That would not preclude the possibility that we would go back and retest this high. Quite often you would see a pattern break, then you see a high retest, then you see the breakdown. All right, so that might be the case here. Looking at USD again, hang on. Right, again, I'm wondering about the obvious bear flag here. Looking at the daily chart. Okay, this is really going to get old. I'm going to go through and fix all these in a minute after I've done currencies. Okay, looking at the pattern here, I am wondering about a retest of this high here, possibly to set up second high of a double top. That, in the event that we were to see a big move up on the dollar, which I have to say I'm not seeing any fundamental reason for, but the pattern setup is nice. Then that could be the next obvious move as dollar goes down. Then we get a nice double top, and this goes up, and nice double bottom on the dollar. GBP USD. GBP USD, we got a couple of, we've got a weekly RSI 14 sell signal, and again, we've got a very nice looking bear flag. Looking at the shorter picture, I'm just going to go through and fix them all in a second. Looking at the shorter picture, again, if we retested this high here, that could set up a very nice looking double top. And actually, we had a head and shoulders here, it broke down, and that's already failed. So I'm leaning towards seeing a retest this high here, which is at 1.3789. All right, looking at USD/JPY, monthly chart. Obviously, we've got this big RSI 14 sell signal fixed here, which I'm expecting to make target sooner or later. And of course, we've got this rising megaphone here, and I'm expecting to see a move down with an obvious target if we're forming an IHS of 120.18, or if we're not forming an IHS, that could go all the way back to retest the low here at 75.54. In the short term, kind of looks like a bear flag setting up a move lower. Looking at USD CAD, got a very nice looking double top here. This isn't a particularly good match with obviously the dollar going and having a big rally, but obviously this doesn't need to play out. I am wondering, obviously in terms of fundamentals, really the dollar's pointing down more than up. I am wondering whether this bull flag might actually break down, but I think it's too early to say. In terms of its short term, we've got an IHS which broke up here and has failed, I think. Yes, it has failed on a move back down for the right shoulder low. This is suggesting some more downside in the short term down to a retest of this low here at 1.354. Looking at Australian dollar, bigger picture, we're pretty close to a breakup over this declining resistance trend line here, and I'm leaning towards that delivering something. Nothing particularly clear in the short term. NZ, we've been in a consolidation triangle for 5 years. Thinking that might break up if we see a decent move up here, which again would be a match with the dollar going down. But the dollar going down to retest the low wouldn't be enough most likely to trigger that. We'd be looking at something larger. Looking at the daily chart, we've got a nice looking double top here, which is broken down. Obviously, that's harder to invalidate than the head and shoulders. But I have also drawn it as a potential head and shoulders. That would fail on a move over 60. We shall see how that goes. All right, great. Let's have a look at bonds. All right, ZB. ZB, I was thinking this looked like an overall bull flag, and the obvious next target would be this trend line here. Now, we've also got what looks like a rising megaphone from this low. If we hold this trend line here and go back, then we can hit both of these trend lines at once. Although, this would suggest this pattern would suggest that the next break would be down. We could, of course, just break down from it now. We will see how that goes. Looking at ZN, ZN, we've got, we went back and retested the high. We had a flag there, it broke up. I rolled both of these in December, by the way, over the weekend. And we've got a nice looking double top here, and I'm wondering, again, whether the next significant move might be down. We shall see. All right, let's have a look at the big picture charts on this. Right, looking at TYX, this looks like a consolidation triangle, which is likely bullish and setting up a retest of this high here at 51.53. On the bigger picture, I'm still wondering about a possible IHS that may be forming that could send this up a long way. It's not particularly encouraging at the moment that the response to getting bad numbers that the administration didn't like means that they've replaced the head of statistics, and Trump's also trying fairly hard to get control of the Fed. If he gets both of those, then the last time that happened was under Richard Nixon in the 1970s, and that didn't turn out too well. The statistics people started, and the new head of the Fed started basically ignoring everything that went up, and then inflation got out of control, and interest rates peaked at 15%. We may or may not be looking at a rerun of that, but in the context of that, if this IHS was to break up and make this target here at 9.5, obviously it would not be close to the retest of this high, because this is the high after that period in the 1970s, and this was the high it reached in late 1981, up 14.9% on the 30-year bond. So I am very much wondering about this, and actually, if we did get to 9.5, that would only get us to 61.8% Fib. So we will see. But we probably wouldn't reach the highest levels until someone did start trying to seriously rein in inflation. But obviously, fiddling the figures and putting down interest rates when they shouldn't be put down is a good way to make inflation go up. All right, looking at TNX. TNX on the daily chart, nothing really to report here. We are getting pretty close to a rising support trend line, but it's not of any great significance. If we were to break down from this, I'd be looking at this more significant rising support trend line in the 37 area. Looking at the daily chart, no current divergence. This has again been a likely bullish consolidation. On the hourly chart, no current divergence at all. All right, looking at TLT. TLT, I've had a possible IHS forming here. There's no particular, this could be a very nice IHS. I'm not seeing any particular reason to think this would go up, because this would suggest that yields would be going down a lot, and I'm not really seeing much of a reason to see that on the actual yields charts. Looking at the daily chart, no current divergence, and again, not seeing anything in terms of a short-term reversal on the TLT hourly chart. We do have a potential double bottom here, but I was thinking in terms of this was supporting the flags on ZB and ZN, but at the moment those flags don't really seem to be going anywhere. All right, let's have a look at oil. Oil, obviously, we actually made this flag target, but for some reason my data the data for it just then dropped off. But we don't need to retest that. I am wondering about this failing to get over the new monthly pivot at 64.59 and then heading down. I've got some reason to think these might be heading down, because HO, no current divergence there, but again, I've got a target lower, which I'm not seeing any particular reason to think won't get made, and I've got that down at about the 2.185 area. Looking at RBOB. RBOB, we've got a tiny bit of negative divergence here, but obviously we've made the targets to the upside, and at the moment I'm not seeing any particular reason. But it doesn't look like the main thing which really could move things up here is one further and bloodier and more disruptive war in the Middle East, which doesn't seem to be close at the moment. And the second thing actually is sanctions on Russia starting to bite. But that doesn't look imminent at all. Trump's not really imposing any extra sanctions on Russia, and the one he has imposed, which is the extra tariffs on India, they don't seem to be responding to. And that being the case, because if, let's say, a million barrels a day of Russian oil went off the market, that really could have an impact on price. But at the moment, that doesn't seem likely to happen. Although there is a possibility that could happen if the Ukrainians continue attacking Russian infrastructure, which really isn't helping them at all. But obviously, it's hurting the Russians, so that's what the Ukrainians are about. Right, NG. NG, we've got a possible IHS forming here after this falling wedge has broken up. I've been watching this, suggesting that we might be on the verge of seeing a decent move up, so I'm watching this with great interest. If we were to see a sustained break up, I'd be looking for targeting about the 3.38 area, I think. That, and obviously, as I've mentioned, we've got a seasonal period coming in where I think we've got a 1.140 increase. Hang on 1 second. Let's just have a quick look. We've got a 3-month period coming up as we go into winter, where we've got a very seasonally strong period, and it goes from 2.9 to 4.2. So that is a rise of almost 50%. It's down slightly from where it was. It was actually up to about 150 at one stage, but this is basically talking about us looking at us going up about 125 over 3 months. If we were to see that, then hang on. If we were to see that happen from here, then obviously we'd be going up into this area. So this is why I'm very carefully watching this, and we're rolling the contract for the next time and kicking off that period in about 3 weeks, I think. So we shall see how that goes. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And on the daily chart, we had an RSI 5 buy signal fix, and that's now made target. We're still on a weak RSI 14 sell signal. We are failing at the daily middle band, or at least not failing so much as we've been really struggling at the daily middle band in recent days. We did actually close over it on Thursday and Friday. But we're not really pulling away from it. And if we're not going to the obvious next target would be up in about the 50 DMA area at about 66. If we're not going to do that, then I'm expecting to see lower. And obviously, Saudis have been ramping up production. Prices have already dropped quite a bit from that. And really, I think we've got a big decision to be made. And that decision is, are we going to retest this low at 56.06 or not? This is one thing I was saying on my chart of the day, talking about oil last week, and I'm planning to do a post on it. But what I'm talking about is I'm looking for a bottoming pattern here. Either we're forming an IHS here, right shoulder's gone a little low, and we could go up directly from here. But the better looking option, and the more likely one, I think, would actually be to go and retest this low here at 56.06 and potentially make a double bottom there. At that stage, really, the point I was making with the chart I posted on chart of the day was, I'm thinking that there's a limited amount of downside in this chart, and there's a lot of upside. Potentially, we come down here, make a low, and then we start a move which could double oil prices or potentially more. This is a move which is taking us down from 126 to 56. Potentially, we could start a move to take us all the way back again. And we've got a larger double bottom here, which is already set up to do that. I am wondering about that. And I'm thinking that really 50 looks like a floor, and potentially we could get back to 120, 130 from there. That could be a very interesting buy opportunity if we see that retest. But I think most likely that's what I'm thinking about here. Do we have support for that elsewhere? Yes. This is a falling wedge which has broken up, and I'm wondering about a low retest. On heating oil, this is a falling wedge that's broken up, and I'm wondering about a low retest, although we've got a pretty decent looking overall double bottom here too. On gas oil, we've got a falling wedge which is broken up, and I'm wondering about a low retest, which we're pretty close to at the moment. By the way, when Trump talks about gas oil, gasoline being in the 190s, think about this for a second. I think he's talking about this. I think someone's talking to him about the gas oil futures price. And that's why he's talking about, prices of like 195, 196 or 190 or 188 or whatever on gas oil, because the only place he could get that number where it would look like gasoline would actually be the gasoline future, where actually we have been trading around that area regularly. Just a thought. But we're getting pretty close. We've got a retest of the low would be at 186. Again, I'm looking for a potential lower bottom here. and a larger double bottom here, and potentially this could then start heading up to some pretty high levels not seen since 2022, when we got up to 412. So wondering about that. Again, looking at limited downside and potentially very sizable upside. In terms of the short term, we haven't got any positive divergence at the moment. Gas oil, this looks like a bear flag, and a bear flag, the target would obviously be a retest below, so we shall see how that goes. All right, let's have a look at natural gas. Now, natural gas, we've got a nice looking falling wedge that's broken up. I haven't drawn that on here, but that is on the future. I'm thinking we may be seeing a nice move up. We did have an RSI 5 buy signal fixed here, and that's now made target. Nothing on the RSI 14. But potentially on this larger wedge here, we are heading back up into this target here, which target trend line here, which would be in about 3.55 area. That would be a pretty good match with obviously the seasonal rise that we would generally see at this time of year. So we shall see. Bigger picture looks less bullish. After we've seen this seasonal rise, I'll be wondering about possible resistance at the weekly middle band in about 3.3 area. And in the event that we head straight down from there, or if we fail at the 200-week moving average, which I've got at 3.87, then I'm thinking overall this kind of looks like a bear flag forming. But this is the sort of thing that forms over years. In fact, this has already been forming for about a year and 3/4. So would it be surprising to take another 3-month break and then come back to test this trend line? No, not particularly. We shall see. All right, great. Let's have a look at metals. Okay, GC. GC, we saw a nice move up. I've been talking about this for a while and saying, really this is overdue. And finally, it looks like we're making some progress. Now, we have got some negative divergence here, and we haven't made it back to target because, unusually, most of the commodities charts I show you on the bigger picture are commodities continuous futures charts, but not on gold. Gold has a spot price. And that's the one I'm looking at. So even though we've made it up to 35.50, we're still 50 or so short of getting up to 3,500 on the spot price. Short term, we've got some negative divergence here. Possible 60-minute sell signal brewing after tonight's retest of this little high. On SI, we've got a 6-minute sell signal fixed. On palladium, we've got a possible IHS forming actually. Ideally, right shoulder low would be a back test of the monthly pivot in the 1239 area. And we've got, again, a possible 60-minute sell signal brewing. If you're thinking there's a bit of a theme developing here, yes. The suggestion is that we've made a nice move up towards the retest of the high, the all-time high on gold. It looks like we're going to see a bit of a pullback, and then we're going to see the next move up. That would be my lean. In terms of platinum, this has been looking like a bear flag forming for several weeks, and we've now broken up from it. It no longer looks like a bear flag, and we did have this little level bottom here, which I'd more or less given up on, and we've just made target on it. Again, it would be very easy to get some negative divergence here, see a pullback, and then go back into a retest of this high. We shall see. All right, copper. The initial bear flag seems to be evolving into a larger bear flag or a triangle. Waiting to see what that is. I've drawn in a potential channel resistance. This does very much look like a flag forming. Let's have a look at that on the bigger picture chart. All right, gold. Gold on the daily chart, you can see the triangle I drew in, and you can see the clear breakup from the triangle. Now, the target is 3,500 on the spot. We've made it up to slightly over 34.50. We've made it up to basically 34.54. Another 46.04, and we get a new all-time high, or at least we get a retest of the current all-time high. That's what I'm expecting to see. Wouldn't be surprised to see a bit of a pullback here, and that's what we're looking at, I think, first. Silver, no current divergence. We've gone back up and retested this high, and we made it up to the 40 area. It may be that we're going to see these resistance trend lines break. And watching that with interest, because if they do break, then that potentially opens up a test of the all-time high at 49.51, which would be very interesting to see. And I think, yeah, that is the all-time high. All right, looking at palladium. Palladium, RSI 5 buy signal fixed, hasn't made target yet. RSI 14 sell signal fixed here as well, but RSI 5 would be the shorter term one. I'm thinking we might see a decent rally here, testing the daily middle band at the moment. On platinum, I'm seeing no current divergence here, but we're almost back up into the high. We're over the daily middle band. This still kind of looks like a bear flag forming, but I think that's because it hasn't caught up with the futures here. Once it has, because this is, oh, this is also platinum spot. Okay, so fair enough. Gold's not the only one. So wondering about a possible retest of this high here, but it's much more of a stretch to see that than it is on gold. Looking at copper, copper, bigger picture, I'm leaning towards the downside. Shorter picture, this looks like a bear flag, after which we should be going down. Obvious next target would be a retest, test of this support here in about the 4.85 area, and potentially a breakdown from there. We shall see. Notice this lovely resistance trend line here. And this is the obvious corresponding support trend line. If this breaks down, could it be a bear flag? No, it's too big and this high is too high. But nonetheless, we could potentially see a move down to the base of this rising megaphone in the 3.13 area. All right, looking at GDX, powering higher through the obvious resistance trend lines on GDX. Getting pretty damn close to the obvious resistance trend line on GDXJ, which I'm watching with interest, but wouldn't be that surprised to see broken. Here on GDX, though, we've actually gone well over the 2011 high now, which is impressive to see. We're well short of that on GDXJ. Short term, neither of these is showing any sign of resistance, and we've actually lost the weekly negative divergence on the GDX chart. There's nothing really suggesting that these two are going to be turning down anytime soon. If we're going to go and see a new all-time high on gold, then I'd be expecting this to go higher as well. All right, let's have a look at commodities. First thing, actually, let's have a look at the hourly commodities. Right, KC, we've got a potential little double top here. I'm wondering about a retracement. Obviously, we've made the IHS target now. On SB, SB, I've pretty much given up on this being an IHS. If it's not an IHS, then I'm really thinking the obvious next move would be a retest of this low here in the 1540 area. I'm thinking we may well see that next. Could this still be an IHS? It's a stretch, honestly. Really, the right shoulder is already too large. Possibly, if we get a break up in the next day or two. CC, this kind of looks like a bull flag forming and trying to bottom out here. It doesn't look as though I'm not seeing an obvious bottoming pattern yet. I am still wondering about a retest of this low, but we could well see a retest of the high after that. Looking at CT, we had a double bottom here, break up here and fail. The larger double bottom kind of looks as though it's failing too. I'm wondering about a retest of this low here down in about the 65.8 area. Looking at lumber has made a strong move down. Now, when we were up here, I was talking about the possibility that we might see a very strong move down, and I think that's what we're watching here. And we're actually about halfway there. I was talking about a move which could take us all the way down to about the 370 area. And this is basically all of this move here is coming down to close to, but not quite hit yet, a test of this large double top at the top support, which I'll talk to you about on the bigger picture chart. On wheat, not seeing an obvious reversal pattern here yet, but I am wondering whether this we'll either see a retest of the low here or see possible IHS forming here. We shall see. This could be an asymmetric double bottom, but I'd be hoping for a better pattern. Corn, we've actually got a decent pattern here. We've got an IHS that has broken up. Only minor niggle here is I prefer it when we don't have a recent low which is lower than the right shoulder low. But nonetheless, this is a decent looking pattern, and it's broken up with a target in the 441 area, and I think that might well make target. On soy, this kind of looks like a bull flag setting up a short-term retest of this high. On ZL, soybean oil, double bottom, broke up, made target. 6-minute buy signal is fixed, but I'm wondering about a retest of this low, which is pretty close. That would not be the second low of double bottom though. Live cattle there's nothing really suggesting that this isn't going to continue going higher. On lean hogs, got a possible resistance trend line here, which I'm watching. Not with a high level of confidence. I wouldn't be that surprised to see this break higher as well. We do have a possible 60-minute sell signal brewing though. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And on the coffee chart, I'm wondering about a retest this high here at 4.408. This is a nice setup to go and see this. And if we did see that, then we would actually see a potential double top, which could actually take us all the way down into the areas where coffee normally lives, which is down here in about the 150 to 2 area. All right, looking at the daily chart, no current divergence, but if we go up and retest that high, we could easily get some very nice looking daily sell signals brewing. All right, sugar, still got this apocalyptic target down here in the 6.5 to 9 area. Doesn't need to make that target though, and I am wondering whether we're making a short-term low. We will see. Keeping an open mind on sugar. Wouldn't be that surprised to see it go down. Looking at cocoa, cocoa obviously is well above the normal areas it lives, which is basically down here, like 3,800 down to about 1,500. This is been at massive highs and is obviously reverting to the mean. We're down below the monthly middle band, and bigger picture, I think we may well be going down. Wondering about a retest this low though. That could be. Yeah, we had an IHS broke up here and failed. That's got a target down here at a retest of 7208. That could be the second low of a larger double bottom when we get there, but it wouldn't surprise me to see it go down. We are trading at long way above historic levels. Okay, wheat. Wheat, we almost got down. I was wondering about a retest of 495.50, and we actually made it all the way down to 497.50. Hasn't quite made it yet. We've seen a very strong move up off the low. We've got back over the daily middle band, and it may be that low is in, and actually this would be a valid double bottom and not a bad one. We will see. Yeah, we will see. So watching to see what happens from here. We do potentially have a setup for a big rise. On corn, we've got an RSI 5 buy signal fixed, and we potentially got a very nice looking large double bottom here too. Not as large, but still pretty sizable. Looking at soybeans, the irritation here is that, of course, we've got something that looks an awful lot like a bear flag, and it didn't make the bear flag target, which would be at 93606. Still wondering about a possible rise up from here. Looking at the daily chart, we've got a possible RSI 5 sell signal brewing, and maybe we can actually make a move down and make it to that 936 target. Looking at cotton, cotton is breaking up over finally this huge falling wedge. Wondering about forming a bottoming pattern here, but of course we've already got a nice bottoming pattern here. We've got a lovely looking double bottom. So I'm thinking we might see a pullback here, but this actually could be the right start of a very sizable move up on cotton. We could retest this low though, as I was suggesting, looking at the hourly chart, in which case we'd just be setting up a smaller double bottom. But you can see this has been huge. It's come down from 158 all the way down to 57. Big numbers. So a move back up over, if this double bottom made target and got it back to about 87.5, that really wouldn't even move the needle in terms of the Fibonacci's here. We need to get up to 110 to get to the 50. All right, let's have a look at lumber. Lumber, big double top, well, it's easier to see on here, so hang on. This is the big double top. This is double top support, and this would be the minimum target down here to retest this low here at 418.50. But actually, it would have the juice to get it down to the target here, which would be in the 360 area. And where is that? This looks overall like a bear flag. I've been talking about this for months. And this has taken 2.5 years to form, and we're getting down to double top support here. And I'm thinking on a breakdown from here, the flag target would be 352.50, and this double top target would be there too. I'm thinking it may make that. We will see how that goes. All right, so on the daily chart, we do have a weak RSI 5 buy signal fixed, and a full-size one brewing. I am wondering about a bit of a rally. Normally, though, I'd expect to see that after the slight breakdown. So maybe starting down here at about the 520 to 530 area. All right, let's have a quick look at crypto. And I think this is going to be interesting for next week. And I've been talking about these. Looking at Bitcoin, we have a possible falling wedge here. No decent support trend line, but the main thing I'm watching here is this double top, which has broken down with a target in the 99 to 2000 area. Now, in my last post, I'll have next one out in the next couple of days. But my last post, I was talking about the key support here being at the week to middle band. This is it, testing the week to middle band over the current week and the last week when we basically closed on it. I think marginally below, actually. We're basically trading under it at the moment here. Convert that to resistance, and I'll be expecting to see that 99 to 100k target. we will see. Do we have some matching patterns on Solana and Ethereum? Well, yes, actually. Nice looking double top here. The other one I was talking about and saying it was frankly too large, and I really wasn't expecting it to play out. This one here is potentially doable. Sustained break below 185.46. That would have a target about the 155 area. Big support area there. I quite like this one. This one actually looks as though it might have a shot. So we will see. Looking at Ethereum. Ethereum, we've got a nice looking little level top here too, and we've now broken under this rising support. If we see a sustained break below 406.326, I'd be looking for a target range in the 3160 area to the 3340 area. And that again looks doable and would be a pretty good match for the test of this trend line. I'm thinking we may see that happen over the next few days. Obviously, we could reverse back up and just go back to retest the highs again. But it's not a bad looking setup, and Bitcoin looks as though it might actually manage to convert the weekly middle band, in which case all of those would be on the table and we could see a bit of a retracement on equities while we were watching that. All right, great. In that case, I think that's a wrap. Everyone take care, and next one of these videos will be on Thursday morning. All right, take care.